George Parr, you are a policy advisor at 10 Downing Street.
Well, that's a bit of a formal description of my job. I hang out down there.
It sounds a rather loose arrangement.
Well, look, here's what happens. Tony's got a problem, say. It could be school dinners or there's a war he wants to do. He just, you know, gets some of his mates round, you know, people he can really trust and people who can really trust... Well, anyway, he gets them around.
Yes, this has been described as sofa government.
Well, that's just a media buzzword. It's not the way it is at all.
So how would you describe what you do?
We sit on sofas and we run the country.
And I understand that you don't have any preparations for these meetings at all.
Yeah, sure, yeah, we have preparations. Yes, we ask what kind of biscuits we want. There are 15 different herbal teas to choose from. I mean, a lot of thought goes into this thing.
But this is exactly the criticism that Lord Butler made in his report.
Well, Lord Butler, he's a different generation, isn't he? I mean, there's been a lot of changes since he worked for Gladstone or whoever it was, you know.
So there are no notes taken at these meetings and there are no minutes.
Well, you see, the trouble about notes is that it slows everything up, you know. People are, having to stop every 5 minutes while somebody says, how many L's are there in illegal, you know.
Doesn't this store up trouble for the future?
Oh, no, absolutely the reverse. No, if you don't take notes, then, you know, 2 years later you won't have to black bits of them out.
On the face of it, there doesn't seem to be much room for collective responsibility by the Cabinet.
By the what?
The Cabinet?
No, sorry.
Yes, but there must have surely have been a certain amount of resentment in Whitehall about the influence that people like you have.
Oh, no, resentment? No, not at all. No, they're very, very grateful. Ministers and the senior officials, very grateful for any guidance they can get. I mean, somebody like Lord Goldsmith, he was tremendously grateful that he could go round to, you know, there at 10 Downing Street with Sally Morgan, Charlie Faulkner, who could tell him what his opinion was. Because it saved him an enormous amount of work, because, you know, otherwise he'd have to think of his own opinions, and you can see how difficult that is for him.
Yes. Yeah. But for you personally, did you feel an awesome responsibility?
About what?
Well, about deciding whether or not to go to war in Iraq.
Oh, well, luckily, we as advisors didn't have to decide whether or not to go to war, because Tony had already made that decision 18 months before. So the pressure was off.
And yet, during that period, he constantly said, no decision has been made.
Well, yes, but I suppose he must have meant that no decision had been made by the Cabinet, as if... But you see, he had given his solemn word to George Bush that he would go into Iraq with George Bush. And as Tony said to me, you know, there must be one point in my career when my word means something.
So the crucial question is why Tony Blair absolutely decided to do whatever American people asked him to do. Was this because of some deep geopolitical strategy?
No. It was a personal thing. Look at it from Tony's personal point of view and how he would feel. I mean, in London, there were people saying to him, you know, they were very worried because Graham Allen had just lined up 60 more Labour backbenchers to vote against Labour. The next day, he flies to Washington, and there's the most powerful people in the world telling him what a wonderful guy he is. If there are a choice of two people you want to impress, and the choice is between Condoleezza Rice and Claire Short, it's a no-brainer.
Surely you're not saying the reason that this whole episode in Iraq took place and Britain's involvement in it was simply because of the Prime Minister's vanity, are you?
Look, all I'm saying is if you address both houses of the American Congress and you get 14 standing ovations, it's a bit of a downer to come home and there are 1 million people in the street shouting about what an arsehole you are.
Yes, well, if I can get back to the style of government question.
Yes.
Jack Straw has said in his riposte to Lord Butler's report that in future policy won't be made by small groups of people informally meeting like you without any records being made and no accountability.
Well, if Jack's right in it, it must be true.
Yes, that's a paradox, is it?
That's a paradox, yes. Yes.
If you know, you're not on the sofa and those decisions aren't being made like that, I mean, who is Tony Blair going to listen to?
Well, certainly if Tony Blair gets a third term, there will be big changes.
Really?
He won't listen to anybody.
Well, Parr, thank you very much.